Welcome to CLIC Connect. I'm your host, Craig Sullivan, and we are so happy to be back for the 7th season of the show. We are bringing you industry leaders in hospitality, and we're very, very excited for this season. So I would like to thank our production partners on this, our good friends over at Red Roof Franchising and Chicago Title National Commercial Services Group. And by the way, they just launched a hospitality practice. So make sure you call them and let them know that producer Danny and I sent you over there. We've got a good friend of mine and of Danny's and of the show. And she's the #1 fan for Friday Night Audit with Glenn Hausman and myself. So how much fun is this show going to be? We have got Miss Amy Montgomery, who is the National Director for Humphrey Rich Construction Group, Inc. And as I mentioned, the #1 fan of Friday Night Audit. Amy, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's good to be here. Good to be here.
Oh,
Thank you for inviting me. I'm so honored.
thank you for joining us. We're the ones that are honored. I haven't seen you since Lodging Conference, and we may talk a little bit about that, but I think that's more Friday Night Audit at this point. But Danny since Click 5 earlier this year, so you've been
Yes.
with her a little bit.
Looking forward to Click 6.
Absolutely. And full disclosure, Amy is back for Click 6 as an exhibitor. So you'll get a chance to meet her there. We're very excited to have her and her team back. Amy, do me a favor, and would you tell the audience about yourself and your company, please?
Absolutely. So the quick skinny on me is my business development career spans over 30 years. For about the first 28 of those years, I worked for manufacturers of contract furniture, plumbing fixtures, representing the factories directly or through independent agencies. My role and what I accomplished in that time frame was I grew market share, that was had profitable revenue in several different vertical markets like K through 12, higher education, federal, state, local government, multifamily, and hospitality. Now, during the pandemic, HR Construction Group, Humphrey Rich Construction, was actually one of my clients while I was working for a plumbing fixtures manufacturer. And they reached out to me about creating a new business development role for their company. Now, they were already and still are a very, very successful commercial general contractor, but they really didn't have much of a presence outside of a very tight and loyal clientele. So, my task was to, and still is, to elevate their brand, to expand their social media presence, as well as give the company a strong voice in the hospitality industry. So, my goal is to earn long term clients as well as build partnerships, mostly rooted in hospitality. So, that's a little bit about me. HR Construction Group, and we're celebrating our 20th anniversary this year. So, we're really excited about that and moving forward.
Nice. Now, 20 years, that's a long run for a general contractor. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys are family owned too, correct?
Yes, Mark Humphrey is the president. Mark and Larry Rich, 20 years ago, came from another construction company and they decided to go out on their own and they brought Tom Garcia with them. So all three of them started on the same day. And basically, the company was founded on 9,000 square foot brick and mortar PNC banks, Chevy Chase banks, all across the country. When buildings were going up everywhere before online banking and ATMs kind of took over the world. But and then they just grew from there. And we've back in 2020, yeah, October of 2020, we actually tipped over $1 billion in total revenue since our existence. And we really have weathered the pandemic very, very well with some large projects that have carried us through.
That's great. Yeah, and I've got to imagine that focusing on the hospitality side, that you guys have gotten really busy with PIPs and rebranding and that type of thing. So let's talk a little bit about that. Where are you going mainly right now? Is it the East Coast, the center part of the country, the West Coast, all of the above?
All of the above.
Okay.
Since we are a national company, We generally follow our clients where they take us, so we don't pick and choose a project in a specific location. But if a client has, a $300,000 job in New Jersey, we're happy to do that. Or if it's an $18 million job in California, we get the team together and we do that. But the trend that we're seeing right now, especially, I don't want to say post-pandemic because we're not really out of it yet, but maybe a post-flag. Not really asking too much of their franchisees. We're seeing a lot of PIPs of public room spaces, some built up, um, monies that people just need to get their hotels redone. So in the past, if there was maybe one or two hotels that a franchisee needed to get done, now it's like 10 and they want it all done next year. So there is a lot of work out there in the renovation field. And we really stick to renovations. We don't do much, if any, new ground up construction unless it's here in the Washington, D.C. area. We'll certainly look at it. But adaptive reuse is starting to be presented to us where you've got companies like Roomza and Sonder that may lease out or buy, certain spaces of a commercial building, but then convert that to a, hospitality enterprise so that all the space is getting used. We're seeing some really interesting proposals these days.
I'll bet. So,
Hmm.
how about repositioning, reflagging of hotel assets? Are you seeing a lot of that right now as well?
Oh boy, especially with the Chase and Radisson deal. Definitely seeing a lot of rebranding, franchisees, shifting around, taking, well, for example, the St. James Hotel in San Diego.
Yeah,
It's a project that we recently started, is being converted to a Pally Hotel, that beautiful pink building,
right, right.
a very historic building. So we've been on that now for, I think, a couple of months, but that's not just a rebranding of a flag, but an independent hotel with a very, high-end brand. So we do see a lot of repositioning going on. That's a pretty good trend right now.
And you brought up a great point with Choice and Radisson. So it's going to be interesting to see how that falls out. And does Radisson Red continue? Does Radisson Blue continue? I am
Mhm.
very excited, and hopefully we'll have our friends from Choice Hotels on soon. They can clear up some of that.
Sure.
Um,
Well, and Sonesta too. I mean, Sonesta was gobbling up, so many hotels and other portfolios over the last couple of years. We're starting to see more and more requests for bids on their properties. Not so much a year ago, but now it's the floodgates are starting to open.
well, yeah, and they've actually got their franchise team out there now, and they've
Mhm.
they had to take care of their in-house properties, and they've done that, and now it's the franchisees, and I think the way that company's been growing, it's just it's an explosion, which I think was needed for the hotel side. I
Yeah,
think
Carl's done a fabulous job.
yeah,
Good for him.
yeah,
And the whole Sonesta team.
yeah, they're a great group. Um, you work with a lot of different designers and architects.
Mhm.
What what are you seeing? What kind of trends are you getting out of them, and also the brands that are that new? Ah, that's a good idea. What are you seeing with that?
It's actually a great question, and I did a little bit of research on this because I've been with HR now for 2 years, 2 solid years. So I only know what I've seen over the last couple of years. I don't really have much of that trend from behind that. But
Yeah,
what we're finding more and more is how the A&D community is working very closely with general contractors on construction feasibility, um, the timing of products, availability of materials, and how they're actually working that into their specifications so we're not having to value engineer or redo a whole package because you can't get something for eight months. That trend with the A&D community has really picked up, and I love the A&D community. I've worked with many companies for the last 30 years, so I'm very comfortable in that environment. But some of the trends that I'm hearing from them as well, interior designers and architects, is that adaptive reuse and the possibility of converting multifamily buildings into hotels, or hotels being used for homeless shelters, or during the pandemic for workers to, traveling nurses and traveling healthcare professionals to actually be put up at different hotels. So there's a lot of good trends I think are going to continue. I love the color schemes that are coming out now with Courtyard and some of the other new brands, Tribute. It's just the residential feel is really coming back into the public spaces and not so
Yeah.
institutionalized, especially in the select service brands. I'm seeing a lot more kind of individualistic type color scheme than what you might have seen before.
I agree with you. And I think, when a hotel's hitting on all 8 cylinders, it celebrates the community that it's in. So if you can bring in those pops of color and layers of texture, that whether it's a beach community, a mountain community, an urban setting, and work that community into your lobby and your restaurant and a few other areas, I think it just really gives it that chef's kiss, at the end
Yeah.
of the day. So that's really good to hear. Now, adaptive reuse is one thing. We've got a lot of old boxes out there, any
Mhm.
50, 25, 30 years old and in between and younger, that just really aren't functional for today. And you guys are very heavily involved with renovations and repositioning and PIPs and all that. Now, if I've got a hotel that's got multiple wings and all that, lots of common area, really great F&B components to it, an
Mhm.
above average pool, almost a water park like. How are you fixing those hotels? Because some of those rooms were really dysfunctional. And I think you've got to, completely go through them and, almost gut a wing in some cases to bring it into what's needed for today. So what's that process like for you guys?
Yeah, great question. And that's also a trend that we see public spaces, especially, with the pandemic and trying to expand space between people.
Yeah.
Public spaces are opening up. I mean, there's not a lot of walled in, cubby areas anymore. There's more of that open feel, that flow to walk to a building. Now, we don't do any design work, so we're building and bringing to life with those the designer and what the owner franchisee wants to see. But in terms of like pools, I mean, we're seeing less and less pool construction and filling in those holes and creating some other functional outdoor space for that type of traveler, especially the business traveler. They don't typically use a pool. If you're in the leisure markets, so on the coast or maybe mountain areas that you're getting more of that leisure traveler, the hotels with pools are great because of the kids coming along. But that business traveler really isn't all that interested in getting in the pool. So making it just depends on what the hotel, the feasibility of it, what it is they're trying to accomplish, the kind of client that they're attracting. And we can certainly help in looking at floor plans and saying, yes, this will work and no, this won't work. But and that's more like the means and methods of construction. But definitely see spaces opening up and less where the furniture in the past would be like the accent color, where you'd
Right.
have these bright pink and green, and the wallpaper would be this. All that's kind of subdued. So the furniture is the accent, and the space itself is the statement. So we love that. I mean, we've been working in buildings. I think the oldest one was One Broadway in New York. It's built in 1892. That was actually an adaptive reuse project. We converted that into high-end office spaces. But yeah, so rewiring, the Carlisle is another one.
Yep.
Taking each of those rooms all the way down to the studs and the concrete, and then building them back up with new electrical and plumbing and security and cameras and technology. It's yeah, we love all that and kind of bring those buildings forward into time.
Love it. Now you're approved with all the brands. You're doing select service, full service, destination resort. the boutique side's always been the fun side. Okay. I mean, talking about pops of color. I mean, sometimes it works really well. Sometimes you got, oh my God, what were they thinking? Uh,
Mhm.
so how about some boutique projects you've been involved with lately? How are those coming? What are you seeing there that really stands out?
Well, the same thing with like luxury or full service projects. Boutique properties are very, very personal. The projects can become very intimate in the sense that it's really a one vision hotel, and the floor plans, the colors, the designer, everybody's invested. I don't want to use the word emotionally to make it sound too personal, but everybody is invested very personally in a project like that. Like the Palais Hotel, that's a very boutique brand, um, and it's in a building that was, I think that was built in 1930 or somewhere in the early 1900s. So those projects are just so much fun. The detail work of the public space, which when a client comes in to stay at that hotel, that's the first impression, is that entrance, that public space. So being very meticulous in detail in millworking and color choices, like Marriott, for example, it's their full service properties, the actual Marriott properties, there's no laminate, anywhere in their public spaces. Everything is real wood. So you bring those kind of ideas into the design, and as a GC, we're tasked to ensure it gets scheduled properly, it gets ordered properly, it gets installed properly, and hopefully within budget.
Hopefully, hopefully. You
Yeah.
know, there's a phrase out there that everybody hates and they cringe, and it's value engineering. I
Mm,
think a lot of people really don't understand what that phrase is supposed to be. The
yeah.
immediate thought is, I'm cutting costs and corners. So,
Mhm.
would you do me a huge favor and explain to our audience what value engineering is so that we can clean that up once and for all, please?
Absolutely. It's kind of the good and bad side of, specifying. Um, the positive side is sometimes, you do get to the point of a project where, like now, I mean, well, this isn't really positive. Um, the costs run up. So over the last 2 years, the cost of materials, you these projects were budgeted and invested in and received, term sheets years ago, a couple, 3 years ago. So now it's time to buy that material, and you've got, 40% increases. What are you going to do? I mean, get mezzanine loans, bridge loans. So that in those kind of cases, that's where value engineering really comes into play. Um, Somebody can say a faucet is a faucet is a faucet, and having worked for a faucet company for 5.5 years, it's not entirely true.
Right,
But in terms of really negotiating that price with a contractor, you don't always have to like change brands. You
right,
can, pick within that same company, still getting the same colors and features, but maybe, you're just at a different price point. Um, I mean, value engineering is all about just bringing down the price. Now, I have a term that I use called value delivering. And
ooh,
what value delivering is, during this time frame where materials are hard to get and they're, ridiculously long, would a franchisee rather spend a little bit more money getting a US product 3 months earlier to be done with the project, or wait for that material coming from wherever and lose that 3 months of revenue?
right, right.
So that's, do you want to get the delivery faster? And, from what I see, Craig, there's a lot of great US companies that can
Yeah,
compete with European and Asian material. So I'd highly encourage people to reach out to US brands.
absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you. And I know, years ago we were renovating a hotel, and we had a really good relationship with a Canadian furniture manufacturer. They had their own forest, their own mills. They, did everything. And unfortunately, they didn't come through the other side after the financial
Mhm.
meltdown. but it was, I mean, some of the best products we ever got came from this group, and they were, family owned. There was no transportation issues getting it across the border. U.S. dollar was strong. It was really a nice thing, and I think, if you can look to get something in the United States that was built here,
Mhm.
and get it from, I don't know, name any other state in the union to, California, New York, Maryland, and so on.
North Carolina, I mean, New Jersey, there's, Texas, there's tons of factories, at the whole, like, middle of the country, there's wood all over the place.
Yeah. So I think that's something to truly consider. Let's,
Hey, what I'm sorry, may I say one other thing about value engineering?
yeah,
So, in the past, this is where that trend of, designers specifically, and then architects too, but designers specifically working closely with GCs, in the past when that didn't happen, you know,
yeah,
the project doesn't go really out to bid to a general contractor sometimes until 1 or 2 years after a design has been developed. And whatever value of that money was 2 years ago, if it's specified as I don't know, call it a $10,000 bathroom. Well, today it costs $30,000.
yeah,
So, as a designer, how do you plan for that down the road? And that's where I would really encourage design firms to work with general contractors up front in
yep,
pre-construction, so you don't have to value engineer and pick something different at the end of a project. Let's get it right up front. And maybe if you have the budget, then go for the moon of this higher end, product. But start with really maybe, if a client's budget is 10 million, you know, plan 8 and then have room to grow, as opposed to planning
right.
for 15 and have to come down to 10.
No, I agree with you. And, that's a very good point that you made. And I know when we were looking at assets to buy, it was okay. I know the GC that I want involved with this. There's two or three designers that I know could really do justice to this
Mhm.
project and make it over the moon. And during our due diligence period, usually I'd set up a day and I'd have the designers come out, and I always had the GC in tow with me. So we started those conversations early. And it always made for a better project. You
Yeah.
know, they established or reestablished their connection. They work together, a lot easier than somebody that's got absolutely no idea who the other party is. So I agree.
Mhm.
It's something you got to do all the time, not just once in a while. Let me ask you: are you having any problems with getting your teams put together? I mean, everybody else is having employment issues. Certainly, hotels are. Our staffing is still way off, and supply chains. How have those improved?
Yeah, good questions. Two different questions. So in terms of staffing here, I mean, we certainly are full staffed. We would love to hire a few more project managers and estimators just to keep pace with what's coming in, because sometimes we got to pick and choose based on the capacity that we have at the time to bid or work on a project. Um, we, as far as staffing, our own employees start, at with the foreman on a project, the superintendents, the project managers, the estimators. Those are all our employees. We do subcontract out, and it's really from a subcontracting standpoint that we're finding, and difficulty is not the right word, but just the time, the bandwidth with certain subcontractors. Their plates are full, so it could be 6 months before we might be able to get a specific, electrical subcontractor or plumbing subcontractor to do that work. So that's going to affect the whole schedule. In terms of suppliers, I know, I mean, they're off the charts with just busy, busy, busy. So materials are still, unfortunately, long term. If a client comes to us and say they want a model room done in 3 months, like, I'd rather say that's just not reasonable, and give a realistic time frame than to say, yeah, sure, we'll get it done, because we we know. we do a very good job with our vendors and our suppliers, and we treat them as part of our team. And we pay them on time. We pay them really well. So we don't want to burn out, our sub base as well, because we need those people to help do our projects. But yeah, it's tough all around. Just try to get bandwidth and time.
Absolutely. One last question before we go into our world famous lightning round. Uh, with the disasters in both Puerto Rico and Florida, are you guys anticipating, as a GC, and there have been all types of material supply problems, are you expecting even more so on that? Because a lot of things are going to have to be diverted to both Florida and Puerto Rico to get life going again. So what's
Mm.
your view on that?
Well, and as it should, anytime you have such an enormous disaster like this. I had mentioned before that my father and stepmother used to live in Port Charlotte, Florida, and they were there during Hurricane Charlie. A lot
Wow.
of wind damage, but the flooding, oh my goodness, this is going to take a very, very long time. Drywall, steel, roofing, just windows. There's so many different trades that are going to have a very strong demand for that area. And
Yeah.
we are in Florida. We're in Sarasota. We're in Boca Raton, right now. Fortunately, those projects didn't get hit too hard. But yeah, we anticipate some phone calls and whatever we can do to help and divert resources. We just please call us. We'd love to be a part of it.
There you go. All right, here we go, my friend. 2-minute lightning round.
Oh
Producer
goodness.
Danny's going to put 2 minutes on the clock. Word
Okay.
association. First thing that pops into your head. Are you ready?
Oh goodness. So so the words is going to show up on the screen?
Nope. I'm going to give them to you.
Oh, you're going to tell me. Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, starting now. Favorite airline?
US Air.
Travel?
Luxury.
Conferences?
Great.
Tech?
Can't live without it.
Bad project?
Embrace it. Learn.
Uber or rental car?
Depends.
Favorite airport?
BWI.
Aisle or window?
If I'm with my husband, window. If I'm by myself, aisle.
Tequila or whiskey?
Oh, tequila for sure. That's easy.
Disneyland?
Love it.
Hey, you did that with 1:08 left. I don't know. Producer Danny's got to check and see if that is
Oh my gosh. Actually, I don't know why I said US Air because Airways, my brother-in-law used to work for them and I did a ton of with airport seating, even when I was 7 months pregnant in the Philadelphia airport in the middle of the night, delivering product. But I'm a Southwest point junkie, so I love just getting in line and having my A list, and I don't even have to worry about it. So
flying
I,
beer can, as I refer
it's
to it.
just interesting why U.S. Airways came to mind and not Southwest.
That is funny.
But both airlines are great.
Yes, they are. They are. We definitely want to be able to get on both of them, so don't say anything derogatory. So, my friend,
Yeah.
one of the phrases was bad project. You said embrace it and learn from it. So let's make that our final conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So you've had everything imaginable go wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
You've got a designer who's fed up. You've got an architect who is at wit's end. You're trying to hold everything together for the owner as the GC. You've got material, supply delays. What are the lessons that you're going to learn from that?
Yeah. Speaking from experience as well as understanding some of the past projects that we've had, because every general contractor is going to have a ringer. And sometimes it's within our control and sometimes it's completely out of our control. But the part to debrief when there's a bad project, What could we have done better? Did we communicate well? Um, how close were we to all of the parties? A GC doesn't just live in a silo. A general contractor has to be inside that nucleus with the owner, with the design firm, with all the trades, so that we can mitigate something that we could foresee could go wrong, which is a lot in the pre-construction and planning phases. In terms of learning from it, I mean, everybody makes mistakes, but the last thing I think, any business, it doesn't matter what kind of business you're in. If something goes wrong, confront it, understand, how your client, perceives that. What can you do differently? And can we still be married at the end of the project? Because our ultimate goal is not to just finish a project and be done, but to be invited to the next one. So part of, I think, why I'm here is to help navigate and mediate that process. Because sometimes you get, you know, people just don't get along, or they're not getting the information they need, and maybe somebody from the outside, like me, can step in and look at things with a different perspective. So definitely embrace challenges or opportunities to shine.
Right.
And I think that's kind of my motto and just what I live by. Don't run from controversy or problems, run towards them.
There you go. I love it. All right, my friend, we are out of time. So, how about a shameless plug? How can people get a hold of you and engage you and your company for their next project?
Thank you so much. So, Humphrey Rich Construction Group, we are a family owned business, nationally recognized. We do work all around the country. We are rooted in hospitality, renovations, additions, conversions, the ugly stuff, the sexy stuff, whatever it is, all over the building, interior, exterior, boiler rooms, fitness centers. We do it all. Um, our website is www.hrconstruction.com. Please visit it. We have blogs that we put on there on a monthly basis. You can meet all of our team. A lot of our good projects are on there that you can see our details. But most importantly, is if you have any questions, you want to learn more about us, just pick up the phone and let's chat. We can do a Zoom call. I'll fly anywhere. I need to keep my Southwest points up. So, I encourage the flight, but our team, we love that first interview to really feel like, is it a good fit for you? Is it a good fit for us? And is it going to be a win-win? So give us a call.
I love it. Thank you, my friend. And we will
Yeah, thank
see you
you.
Friday on Friday Night Audit.
Yes, I can't wait to see the audit again.
Yes, and we don't tell Glenn, but we're going to have fun with music. So
Oh,
it'll
shh,
be
shh.
an exciting show. Don't
All
tell
right. Well, we do this. Okay, I'll be quiet.
them. Thank you. I
Thank you,
appreciate
Craig,
it.
so much. I really appreciate it.
Take care.
Okay.
That's it. We wrapped another episode. Wow, what a great time that was. Amy Montgomery and her crew is just outstanding. I've met the ownership group. Give them a call. That's all I can say. Give them a call. I want to thank our production partners, Red Roof Franchising. What a great group. Chicago Title National Commercial Services Group, California. Hey, right now, you're looking for a new brand, give our friends at Red Roof a call. They've got select service, they've got extended stay, and a soft brand. Give them a call. Your real estate deals, more so now than any other point in time in the past decade, you need a title and escrow company that can get your deals closed and closed on time. Give them a call. They do have a newer hospitality group that they've started to work with all of you across the country. And please let them know that producer Danny and I sent you. So that's it for this episode. You know what I like to say. Be kind, share your knowledge, go be amazing.